Hi, I'm Jean Lafleur, a geologist. I work with Lafleur Minerals. I'm technical advisor with the company. Lafleur Minerals specializes in mineral exploration in Quebec. It also has a mill, a small mill, 500 to 750 tons per day, operational mill, and we're basically building reserves for the mill.
Right. Well, Jean, it's lovely to meet you. And I think in this case, the clue's in the name. Uh, you're the guy who probably started this, all right?
Well, I'd like to say I did, but I think if you talk to Cal, the president, or the chairman, he'll probably say, "Look, I like the name so much, I decided to use it." Right? So I think, who knows, right? It's the chicken or the egg, or the chicken, or
Check.
yeah, that's right, chicken or the egg. But yeah, it's an interesting proposal, and since we're in Quebec, I specialize in geology of Quebec. I've been doing this for a long time, and I think our paths cross, and there's something that I could contribute to, to the company.
Right. So, as an advisor, so I mean, that means what in terms of the assets that have been picked up? Were they sort of known to you?
Yes, very well. I mean, the main asset, obviously, the Beacon Mill, which is just down the road from Val-d'Or. I've known over the years, I've known people that have worked on the Beacon project when it was a small mine, small operation. And being part of the Val-d'Or camp, you kind of know the geology, the upside potential for that property, and there's definitely something to do there. At the same time, we have the Swanson project, which is north of Val-d'Or, one that I know quite well, that I've seen over the years at various times. Early in my career, when I was just out as a geologist, we visited the small pit, plus some of the geology in the area. Lately, I worked a few years back for a previous vendor on the property with a small team of people, and we're building for the future, just trying to expand the actual resources on the property itself. And I guess right now, helping out, I did some core logging of the first dozen holes or so on this current campaign, which is still ongoing right now. And just to get a feel for, okay, the rocks are the same, nothing's changed. And plus, we're doing more, what I'd say, regional exploration outside of the main Swanson project. It's always been explored as a piecemeal type property. It was much smaller. Now, Lafleur has expanded it to probably about 5, 6 times the size. So we have claims on trend, across trend. So I think, there was a dual purpose to this campaign. And, the first one is obviously expand Swanson. And we had geological success. We saw where it goes in space. But there's also additional ground that we wanted to test. And, we've had some very nice visual geology that is giving us hope in terms of the results. So we'll have to wait and see what the results give. But it's definitely a great prospect. There are on strike to all this or on trend, some small deposits, gold deposits, base metal deposits, and maybe we're on to the big one on this property.
Right. I think last time I caught up with the company, it was kind of clear what the strategy was, and I think people seem to like it, which is obviously let's feed that mill, buy the mill,
Exactly.
get it up and running, feed the mill, and get some revenues flowing. Now it started from a low base. Obviously, we got a small resource, but 200,000 all categories. Your job, and you're talking about like logging core, etc. Your job is to kind of obviously increase that number and kind of feed
That's
the
right.
beast.
Yeah.
So, can you what have you specifically been tasked with helping the company to do?
So that's one part of the project, right? One part of the company. The other one is basically sourcing other projects within 100-kilometer radius, which is kind of the par for course for these mills. You look at some of the other big projects in the area, the actual mines, and that's what they do, right? So they, anything that can come into feed. So we're within 100 kilometers with the Swanson property. So I think the idea is as quickly, as rapidly, efficiently as possible to increase the resource. It would be nice to get it up to the 500 to a million ounce, which I think for a smaller operation, that's perfect. If we find something bigger, which could be the case, then it could be a company maker that changes everything, the whole perspective. But at the same time, we're in a camp where there's other players, big players like Nico Eagle, El Dorado. So in some ways, you want to track those guys too, because maybe there's something to do in the end. But let's start with Swanson, and we're still evaluating a lot of projects in the area. The Beacon Mill sits on an interesting property that has gold mineralization. Some of our neighbors do too. So maybe we're wedged in some quite a number of good companies. I think there's something that we can carry yourself in the next year or so, and we'll see what happens.
But how do you prioritize that? Because there's a fair few moving parts there. Obviously, Swanson, you've expanded that area already significantly. You got, I think we talked about 50 plus targets last time, down to 4. Swanson, Mary, Bartek, and Jolin. You've just mentioned potentially continuing to look within like a 100-mile radius. There, are you talking about private? Are you talking about non-core assets? I mean, you've been around the area a long time. You know what's there.
That's
what are
right.
you honing in on?
Yeah, well, all of the above, right? Because the idea is that anything that has a gold intersection is a possibility, right? So even a small resource, historical resource, hasn't been worked on for 10, 20, 40 years. There's a number of properties like that in the belt, and it gives us that little extra opportunity, whereas a big company would probably be looking at 3-5 million ounces. So even if we have under a million ounce, it's still favorable. And there's stockpiles here and there. There's many of these historic mines. There's hundreds of them in the area. So I think it's just a question of going through as packages and seeing that, okay, there's an opportunity here, let's try it. Maybe the vendor, it's up to them, what they want to do. But generally, the opportunities are there. We can acquire the properties and develop them ourselves. I think that's the model, and it's a good model. I mean, it's niche. It's a niche type, but it's favorable.
Well, I guess the Beacon Gold Mill gives you that optionality. So you're talking about stuff which is above ground and below ground, private or public, which perhaps won't suit those who don't have a mill. Those types of conversations, is it a case of identifying them initially, or have you actually started conversations trying to open doors?
Yeah, open doors. I mean, that's the key. I know a lot of the people involved in these companies. Sure, there's a lot of new players, but knowing the geology of the area, knowing the extensions, and I think it would favor Lafleur Minerals to be able to really be proactive. Instead of just reactive, wait till the press releases come out, somebody's doing some work. And, we've identified, I wouldn't say 100, but probably somewhere between 50 and 100 projects in the area. And, it's just a question of going through individually or as packages. And sometimes the people will call you, right? So, and say, look, I have something, you guys have a mill. And it's fully permitted, with tailings area, everything. So that's a big advantage for Lafleur on anything like I say, within 100 kilometers of here. And, there are some projects being developed in the area outside of the major mines. So maybe there's a high grade zone that sits by itself, and, the people there say, well, there's no point. We're trying to do something bigger, but maybe we could do some toll milling, at our place, and it gives them some money to move forward too, and it gives us the opportunity to prove the point that our mill's in pretty good shape. We can easily use it for any type of gold ore. I mean, that's the key, and it's in really good shape. So I think it like I say, it's a favorable situation to be in a camp with a mill. I'm not saying if you're 1,000 kilometers from anything, but no, here's the place. It's Val-d'Or, so it's a great opportunity.
Yeah, I guess there's a few models here. Like in a market like this, with margins on gold like they are, is you kind of get after those sorts of conversations because it's cheaper than drilling, or do you have to be conscious that the market may also want to reward not just high margin processing, but that kind of blue sky upside on the kind of Swanson side of things. So understanding the geology and your
That's
model
right.
and this
Yeah.
this whole kind of orogenic load system that you've got in front of you. Again, how do you prioritize and allocate capital based on the available options to you on the table?
Sure. I think it's a question of, look, we have the opportunity with Swanson. That's key, right? So I think it's just a question, okay, can Swanson make it to 500 to a million ounce? Okay, if it can, then let's test it. And we basically did the drilling now to show that it is expandable. It's not just located in one area. Great. Secondly, we have all these other targets on the trend. So, okay, so maybe there's other areas on the property. So it's an organic growth. And to go acquire something else, it could come. I mean, we're talking recently with a player that was just beside the mill, just a small group of claims, former mine operation, been dormant for many years. Yeah, maybe there's a possibility to go there, just to pick up and do a bit of work, come up with something near surface, maybe open pitable, maybe not, but at least if you're dealing in the top, I'd say 300 meters, that could be economic, whereas in another situation, you have to build a mill, it would not be economic, but for us, it'd be economic, just buy it. Or if the people just want a toll mill, well, you can still make money on toll milling, but we take it project by project. So we look at it, and it's been good. We're sort of verifying maybe every month we have one project come in, so we look at that, and we're proactive on some other ones too. And we have a pretty good technical team right now with Paul as president, Louis Martin is another advisor, exploration guru here in Val-d'Or. So it's fantastic to have this opportunity here.
Can you talk about the geology a little bit and your model as well? You've kind of got, like I mentioned earlier, this orogenic load system along sort of two regional breaks. What type of mineralization are we looking at? And again, how does that kind of feed into your thought process going
That's
forward?
right. I mean, we're at Swanson. It's perfect because we have both the classic orogenic gold system with quartz veins that you see in many of the mines here. So gold associated with it, sometimes visible gold. And we also have the sulfite component, so pyrite, which is that's a nice sulfite to have. Other portions of the camp, you have things, nasties like arsenic, but here, no. So I think that's good, right? Because you can combine both. Gold in quartz veins, obviously, it's difficult to estimate grade sometimes, but I think for us, it doesn't really matter. We know that the grade's going to be such and such. You could play with cutoff grades. You can include more of the sulfide zones. So it's kind of wait and see. And with the economics now at gold at 3,600 plus, we don't necessarily have to wait 10 years, 20 years before we get this thing mined. Because it's smaller, it's near surface, open pit would be ideal. The imprint is small, and there's other opportunities, other mines that are working underground that, they do have mills, but maybe they would sell with maybe 100, 200,000 ounces, and that still would be economic for us. So look, I think the situations are there right now that, yeah, a lot of people want to do it themselves, do everything themselves. But having the mill there, I think, just opens up so many doors. And over time, like the next 3 years, say, I think there'll be other opportunities coming in. And, we'll take advantage of them. I mean, it's
Right.
normal.
Yeah, and then you've obviously got this. I think we talked about this new drill program with the current program. With these sort of regional step outs along strike at Swanson, not just kind of infill. Can you sort of talk to that and how that kind of feeds into maybe a new 43-101 resource update?
Yeah, I think there would be. I think we need to add a few more holes. Now we're testing, basically, does it extend, right? So it's always a two-pronged approach, right? Okay, find the extension and then do some infill. But because we know the model, you may get away with less drilling in a sense that, okay, we understand the original model, several zones, or maybe it's more of a bulk type system that I would consider a bulk So that to me is maybe a little easier to estimate. So it's just a dimension, height, width, length. But at the same time, you got to be careful with your high grades. You got to make sure to separate those from your low grades. So there's no smearing. But again, it's perspective, right? So if we have it over 500 meters, now we see that it's over 2 kilometers long. Okay, then start doing your infill drilling as a second, third pass, and bring it up to the highest quality resource possible and do your estimate. But again, we're not looking for 5 million ounces. I mean, sure, it'd be nice to find one of these deposits, but even if we get like I say, 500,000 to 1 million ounces, I think that's favorable for us. Truckable distance.
Well, okay. We're talking about this kind of, you don't want to be smearing with the higher grade sheets. And I think previously we've talked about sort of these 8 subvertical zones at Swanson Lake. Have you kind of refined the structural model, plunge controls on these higher grade sheets?
Yeah,
all done.
Yeah, I'm still debating the model, right? I mean, I'm sort of a bit of a rebel in that everything that's been done 15, 20 years ago should always be reevaluated, because there's new ideas, just the modeling aspect, the programs that we have, makes total sense to look at this in every possible direction. And the idea is to separate the actual quartz veins, the high grade material, from the low grade. And I suspect that we'll have a lot less of an issue by doing that. Now that if we have 8 zones, how are you going to mine them? And especially if they're very close together, I think it'll be nice to bulk up, and there's different ways to do the estimates to be able to take care of that. And taking a bulk sample, I mean, we have the opportunity of doing that too, just to estimate. Okay, this is what makes sense here. Take a bulk sample with veins and non-veins, and see if you can reconcile with your estimates. And I think it's just the same story over and over again. You have to do that continuously to make sure that you want to get as close as grade possible from your estimate to the mill. So I think it's easy in a certain way, right? If you understand the model. And Val-d'Or has been fairly consistent over the years, and there's always ore to be found. I mean, Malartic was the best example. They bulk something that nobody thought possible. I mean, so okay, before everybody was mining just quartz veins. So I think again, it always creates opportunities for us, especially at Lafleur. We have that capacity to move quickly, not look for the 5 million ounces, look for anything under 300,000 ounces could be practical for us. And for our own property, if it's a company maker, well, maybe we'll find a 5 million ounce. That's a different story. Then you have a choice, right?
Well, I mean, just coming back to what you said about the bulk sampling, you also got to talk about permitting in the same breath, haven't we? So,
Yeah.
where are you with that, with the whole kind of mine plan update and filing for the mining lease?
I think we're still a ways off, but like I say, this first campaign was quite revealing, and we have sufficient funds to start a second campaign to try to put in some limits to it, size limits, and hopefully, even if it gives us inferred, we can get a PA going. And if it's encouraging, then who knows, right? I mean, if it's close to surface, it'll be easy to test in a bulk sample. I mean, that's the key. Yes, there's always overburn that you have to take care of, but we have sufficient core from all the previous campaigns that were done that we could probably get a 500-ton sample out of this, and do more metallurgy, just to make sure that everything is okay with our mill. But I don't see any problems. It's a standard mill that have been used here in the camp for many years. So and the ore is very typical of what you find in the area. So shouldn't be. Are you
starting to close in on the kind of final bulk sample design in terms of tonnage or
geometry? I think so. We could. Yeah, because we have sufficient coverage of that deposit, so we could take both quartz and sulfide type ore, keep it separate, then mix them together and see. But I think the possibility is definitely there.
Right. Okay. And I mean, to do all of the above, have you looked at sort of ore sorting technology, or?
Well, you might, because there's definitely color contrast, and you need extreme contrast, right? So, the white quartz, the clear quartz versus the darker host rock, which is sort of a bit of a carbonate, so it has a darker cream beige color. So yeah, there's definitely a contrast there, and that versus the green host that surrounds all this. So yeah, it could be an interesting approach, especially.
But
Yeah, no, it's definitely
but not there yet.
no, not there yet at this point,
Okay.
but it
What
can
about
be
mill?
done.
It can be done. Yeah, sounds like. What about some mill test work?
We could do that because, again, our mill is ready, right? I mean, it does need a few patches here and there, but it's nothing critical, right? I mean, I visit a couple times. I feel comfortable. I'm not a metallurgist. I'm not a mill guy, but I've seen enough of them that, yes, I think we can start fairly quickly. If something like that was there, we can do our own bulk sample, pass it here. I mean, I don't see a problem with that.
Okay, and I think it was mentioned to me that we're probably only looking at about 5-6 million restart budget for that, right?
Yes, yes, definitely. It may be less too, right? I mean, you're always looking for opportunities to decrease those costs. I mean, everything's there. So yeah, sure, maybe there's some pipes to change, but I can't see it as a big issue right at this point.
Right.
Yes, there's some work that
Okay.
needs to be done around the tailings, but again, it's been classed, it's been defined, so we just need to do it.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. So once you kind of sort of start firming down on those operating availability, recovery, etc., leading to whatever ramp up curve looks like. What is the process for kind of getting to that point where you can do that?
Well, main process is the resource, right? And once you get that,
Okay.
yeah, just do a bulk sample, and you could do it here depending on the size of it, right? But again, you probably want to use one of the external labs to be able to, as independents, right? But once you get to that, then there's just a question, okay, any little refinements, tweaking you need to do to your mill to just optimize, but it's like baking a cake in some ways, right? You just need the right combination of ingredients to make sure you extract the most gold out of it. And we know in the Val-d'Or camp, you can get recoveries of 97% plus. I used to work at the Sigma mine when I first came here, and I was a geologist, but you could see these guys have been working on their mill for many years, and they were getting recoveries up in the 98.5 type of 0.7 recovery. So that's really good, and there's I don't see any issues with getting things like that. I mean, you have jurisprudence here on all these mills that have been operating, and we're not doing anything different. So it's definitely to our advantage.
Right. Well, I was actually bit of work to do there, but I think you've also recently done the hard bit. You've kind of closed on the fundraise or raises. That kind of gives you the money to kind of, I guess, start the process, and in terms of allocating capital to the things that you're going to need to be able to do.
Yeah,
what you need
exactly.
to do.
Sure.
So that was good. Where did the money come from? Was it mainly retail?
Probably have to ask Cal for that, but
Right, okay.
I take care of the technical side. But yeah, I'm sure we had visits with some investors a little while back, and I think the key there is to get people interested, around his circle, and there's definitely people interested here in Val-d'Or with the story. And everybody kind of looks after each other in some ways. So the bigger guy will look, okay, what can they do? And if they see that we're starting to define some good resources, and the mill will start up, people ask questions, and just see how these guys are doing. But like I say, I mean, the previous vendor operated the mill well. I mean, they obviously had other issues to deal with, but raise enough money to be able to start the mill and just never close it, right? Just make sure they have enough supply. So that's the key, right? And
obviously once that kind of PEA status and scope kind of come in, we can start looking at the execution risks, etc. But I think we better come romping back to the matter at hand, which is obviously the drilling at Swanson. I didn't ask you if you were going to advance either Mary Bartek or Jolan.
yes,
Is there any kind of verification definition drilling planned on that?
well, maybe more validation of the actual size. We hit quite a bit of additional mineralization. Some of it was reported, but visually, there's a substantial core that shows
Right.
something a little different in places, right? I'm not saying it wasn't known, but it's so typical of a camp, right? I mean, you have areas that are barren, okay? They've been barren for 80 years or 100 years. But in reality, when you start drilling, you might hit something. And, that's kind of the nicety about, being in a mining camp and looking at material that you think, oh, it's not going to carry, but it does carry. And that's the surprise. And you find quartz veins, sulfides, even in areas that you never expected. And I've done so many campaigns in the camp here where you don't expect it because it doesn't follow the model, but you hit. And to me, it's just analyze everything, and just you kind of hope, but you kind of know that when you get multiple generations of sulfides, multiple generations of veining, there's a good chance that if there's gold in the system, that this will carry. Right?
Someone used a phrase with me once years ago, and I was like, I kind of laughed at the time. I said, "Oh yeah, we've got economic geologists." So I'm like, "Oh, what the heck's that mean?" And it came over the years to realize that what it means that some geologists are better than others at kind of focusing on the right ounces, because not all ounces are born equal.
Right.
And you've said, I mean, really clear, a target would be, well, let's kind of move this thing to million ounce and beyond. So in terms of your targeting, are you really clear about what ounces you're looking for?
Yeah, and the only reason I can say that is because I have a mill, right? If I didn't have a mill, then okay, I'm not saying you're stuck, but these days, because of permitting, because of issues with communities, that it's not like the old days, right? And we're not talking that long ago, but everybody has to be taken care of. Every single environmental issue has to be taken care of, and there's also governance too, and companies. So, I mean, taking care of that probably requires that you have more ounces than you should. Originally in the early days, and now we have a mill. We already have the mill, so we don't have to really necessarily look at things that are, very complex. And 100,000 ounces is probably sufficient for like a 2-year operation. So you find a bunch of those. Well, you can add it up to 10 years, and then just keep drilling on your best targets and acquire other properties, and you have time to be able to raise the money internally in a sense, and then go drill these other projects, including our Swanson. Find something that's maybe 2 to 3, 4 million ounces, and it changes the whole perspective. And the nice thing about Beacon is that you can expand on site. It's a fairly large mining concession. Tailings is, there's lots of space left, and you just have to raise the banks if you want more space. So again, all these advantages really make sense. And Cal's perspective is kind of like that, right? Just organic growth internally, but just keep looking, and we will find other deposits around there that they're just missing that little extra piece of information to make it look bigger. And myself, Louis, Paul, on the team here, I've seen a lot of gold deposits, and we kind of know what we're looking for, and combination of things. And it's just a question of drill a few holes, prove the point. Proof of concept is so important, and then do your outline, and eventually get into your delineation. Do it in stages, and just do the right work, and it works.
Well, yeah, I think there's something in that. When you're problem solving, it's always quite good to go to the end point and say, well, that's where I want to end up. Now let's work our way back. And I think with the mill, that's exactly what that does for you. It allows you to actually answer the question of what type of drilling, what type of ounces, and how do I feed that revenue generating machine of ours. So, look, Sean, I've really kind of enjoyed the conversation today. Just understand a little bit more from your perspective about the way forward, and it seems quite clear. So, good luck to you. Stay in touch. Let us know how you get on.
Well, thanks very much, Matthew. Much appreciate this. All the best.